All right. So commonly misused words and phrases. The Elements of Style, the classic treatise by William Strunk. We are on M. So most, not to be used for almost. So most everybody, we've seen that a lot. Almost everybody. So most everybody is bad. On the left side is bad, right side is good. So most everybody is a bad way to write it. Almost everybody is excellent. Most all the time, bad way to write it. Almost all the time, good way to write it. This comes up a lot. It definitely comes up in speaking, but I've seen it a lot in writing as well. So interesting. Even though it might be colorful and creative, it's actually grammatically incorrect. Learn something new every day. So nature, often simply redundant, used like character, acts of a hostile nature, or hostile acts. So or acts by a hostile character. Right here. Acts of a hostile character, hostile acts. Yeah. Often vaguely used in such expressions as a lover of nature, poems about nature. Unless more specific statements follow, the reader cannot tell whether the poems have to do with natural scenery, rural life, the sunset, the untracked wilderness, or the habits of squirrels. Kind of hilarious. He's funny. He's kind of funny. Or the habits of squirrels? Like, what? The habits of squirrels? I mean, it's direct, but there's also a little bit of humor. He lets a little bit of humor out. Nearby. A verbial phrase, not yet fully accepted as good English, though the analogy of close by and hard by seems to justify it. Near or near at hand is as good, if not better. Not to be used as an adjective, use neighboring. The neighboring countries, right, as opposed to the nearby countries. You could also say um, the adjacent countries. I like adjacent. So I don't think he's talking about nearby the one word. It looks like it's the two word construction. But anyways, all right. So neighboring, I would use adjacent. Um, Oftentimes or oftentimes. I rarely use oftentimes. Um, he's saying that these are archaic forms. The modern word is often. Um, Oftentimes, it's true. It's pretty sort of colorful, and he's saying it's blatantly archaic, which means it's like old, ancient. Um, like part of an archaeological dig, essentially. That's how I remember it. Anyways, what archaic means. But so often, I've used oftentimes. I've never used oft times because those two T's are just it was like a head scratcher. Um, but he's saying that often is the modern word, best word to use. So yeah, so I guess I never really suffered for it in terms of grades, but I don't think I overused it as well. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to use oftentimes, you want to use often, apparently. 101. Retain the and in this and similar expressions in accordance with the unvarying use of English prose from Old English times. So instead of saying 101, say 101. Also, it helps obviously when it's being written in terms of clarity, right? 101, 101. It's just better in terms of clarity. It's nice to hear from Strunk, to hear him weigh in. It doesn't mean he's like, the Jesus of grammar or the Gandhi of grammar. But he's definitely someone who you look to as far as like a source. Since writing and communication is, there's still a flair. It's still somewhat subjective. It's not like purely black and white, right and wrong. It's very dynamic. Words change. They fall out of favor. They fall out of use. They jump into use. I heard that Shakespeare created lots of words, dozens and dozens of words. That he made them more popular, whereas they might not have been as popular before he used them. So it's definitely dynamic in a lot of ways. But you still want to check out these revered books like the Elements of Style when you're trying to improve as a writer. They're just good like guidelines. So 101, retain the end. Okay, one of the most, and avoid beginning essays or paragraphs with this formula. As one of the most interesting developments of modern science is blank. Switzerland is one of the most interesting countries of Europe. There is nothing wrong in this. It is simply threadbare, enforceable, feeble. Um, it definitely is. However, um, if you're really pressed for time, and let's say you've got a standardized test, that you're taking, and that's and you've organized your thoughts and you've done this and that, and then you end up like writing that, it might not hinder you as much as you might think. It will definitely hinder you if you've got an essay that you've been given a week to complete the essay. It will hinder you. It will affect your grade, depending on the class. But if there's any kind of rigor in the class, you're probably going to get, um, you know, uh, it's probably not going to be a plus. Because it's not the best way to introduce an essay. However, if it's in a timed setting, generally the the graders will cut you a little bit of slack because they also know that you only have 30 minutes to write this out, so there's a lot of duress involved. But at the same time, he's saying that generally you don't want to use one of the most when beginning essays or paragraphs with that phrase. Generally saying it's not good. So a common blunder is use a singular verb. Okay, so this is bad. One of the ablest men has detected this problem. Yeah, this seems like a fragment to me because of that. One of the ablest men that have attacked this problem. I'm pretty sure this is a fragment and not a complete sentence. So I don't know if this is perfect text here. I would have put dot 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 dot. Maybe parenthesis. I would have put fragment or something. I don't know. All of these are supposed to be complete sentences. But anyways, participle for verbal noun. Do you mind me asking a question? Do you mind my asking a question? So this is bad, and this is good. Tell me how often we've heard this. A lot. I don't think this is going to be knocked off rarely. Maybe, yeah, I think this is going to be knocked rarely. There's little prospect of the Senate accepting even this compromise. There is little prospect of the Senate's accepting even this compromise. I think this is crucial and important with regards to Strunk in his treatise, as it were. But I don't think that this comes up that much. I think that teachers cut a lot of slack. So if you use this construction in speaking or writing, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. But this is wrong. This is right. There's a little prospect of the sentence accepting. Here's the corollary is that if you do this right every single time, like people that are amazing communicators and amazing at grammar and amazing and have read hundreds and hundreds of books and just know every rule, they're going to catch it. Then they're going to have a lot of more respect for you. I promise you that. You will get more respect because you're sort of winking, at these folks, and they understand. It's kind of like, when someone says some funny line of some song that was like 20 years ago. I called a vendor today, and he said that he said some funny line from some song, and I totally caught it, and he's like, yeah, like most people, they don't even get it, and but this is sort of the same thing. Like, if you know this and you correctly write it, and someone that's really good at grammar, like sees it, you're definitely gonna get extra respect. So, anyways, it's not the end of the world if you don't know it, which is what I'm saying. But it's a plus if you understand that. In the left-hand column, asking and accepting are present participles. In the right-hand column, they are verbal nouns or gerunds. The construction of the left-hand column is occasionally found. It has its defenders. Yeah, so it does have its defenders. I'm sure a lot of us have done that. I'm sure that I've done all 4 of these. Yeah, it is easy to see that the second sentence has to do not with the prospect of the Senate, but with the prospect of accepting. All right, so prospect of the Senate's accepting even this compromise. You know, if I could explain this, I like that. I like the fact that, he's clearly stating that, look, this is illogical. There's little prospect of the Senate accepting even this compromise. It just sounds a little bit awkward. Just saying it out loud. There's little prospect of the Senate. But if you say there was little prospect of the Senate's accepting even this compromise, it just sounds better. The prospect of the Senate versus the prospect of accepting. A prospect of the Senate versus a prospect of accepting. As the authors of the King English point out, there are sentences apparently, but not really, of this type in which the possessive is not called for. I cannot imagine Lincoln refusing his assent to this measure. As opposed to saying, I cannot imagine Lincoln's refusing his assent to this measure. By using the possessive, the writer will always be on the safe side. It's interesting, though, because here, I don't know, I think some teachers might miss this. I think it's interesting. It's an interesting one. This is definitely something I'd like to hear about in the comments. But he's basically saying, look, using the possessive, the writer will always be erring on the safe side. So yeah, so do you use the possessive? I cannot imagine Lincoln's refusing to assent to this measure. My emails are going to improve now tremendously. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, this is interesting stuff. And, what you can remember is a plus, and then what you can't, just keep plugging away and use word check or Grammarly when you need help. Or your friend in the next cubicle or the next desk. So, okay. By using the possessive, the writer will always be on the safe side. In the examples above, the subject of the action is a single unmodified term immediately preceding the verbal noun. Should be, of course, be recast. Okay, so let's look at the bad and the good. In the event of a reconsideration of the whole matters becoming necessary, that just looks bad. I mean, wouldn't you agree that just looks bad? If it should become necessary to reconsider the whole matter, comma, that makes sense. I see. So these aren't always full sentences, but I just wish they would make it clearer if they were fragments. But they really didn't. So it's all right. There was great satisfaction. There was great dissatisfaction with the decision of. So was with of being. That just sounds weird, right? There was great dissatisfaction that the arbitrator should have decided in favor of the company. There was great dissatisfaction that the arbitrator should have decided in favor of the company. That's a tricky sentence, but this is certainly much better than this. All right, so now let's do. The people is a political term, not to be confused with the public. The people, yeah. From the people comes political support or opposition. Has to do with politics. The people. From the public comes artistic appreciation or commercial patronage, like business, the movie-going public, right? Customers. The people is politics. The public is customers or the audience. Phase means a stage of transition or development. The phases of the moon, the last phase, not to be used for aspect or topic. Another phase of the subject, nope, bad. Another point, another question, good. Possess, not to be used as a mere substitute for have or own. Okay, this is interesting to know. Possess means to have in your possession. That's like on your person. He possessed great courage. Bad. He had great courage. He was very brave. He was the fortunate possessor of, or he owned. Interesting. I think I've made this faux pas many a times. I'm sure I have. So it's not to be used as a mere substitute for have or own. Good to know. Prove. The past participle is proved. This was proved. Not proven, but proved. All right, so hopefully this was helpful. And we're going to do R's and S's in our next video. Thanks a lot.